Okay, let's unpack this. We talk about AI a lot. I mean, everyone talks about AI a lot.
Constantly.
And it's usually, how do I write the best prompt?
Right.
Or which model is the fastest? Or is this going to take my job? It's very
Oh,
practical.
very technical.
Exactly. But today, we are going completely off-road. We are looking at a stack of research that basically says, stop looking at the technology, look at your head. Look at how you think about the technology.
It is a fascinating pivot. You're right. The conversation is usually about the specs, the horsepower of the engine,
Yeah.
but the material we're diving into today isn't a technical manual. It is actually from a course titled AI System, Authority, and the Shift of Responsibility. And frankly, it's a bit of a wake-up call.
It really is.
It's less about code and, more about psychology.
Yeah, and the central premise, the hook that really grabbed me immediately, is this concept of the tool mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I'll be honest, when I open up ChatGPT or whatever, I think of it like a hammer. Or maybe a really, really smart spreadsheet. It's a tool, I use it, I put it down, simple. But these sources are arguing that this mindset is actually a trap.
Exactly. And calling it a trap might even be an understatement. The core mission of this deep dive is to explore that specific tension. When you treat AI as just a simple tool, like a calculator, you ironically end up shifting massive amounts of responsibility.
Right.
You erode your own human judgment, and you create what the text calls false authority.
False authority, that sounds a little ominous.
It is a little ominous. We are drawing from a foundational course here, one designed for executives and decision makers. So the focus is really on organizational dynamics and how our brains work under pressure. It's about what happens to us when we invite this non-human intelligence into our decision-making loops.
So let's start there with that tool mindset. The source material defines it pretty clearly, but I want to hear your take. Why is thinking of AI as a neutral assistant such a bad thing? It sounds
Sure.
nice.
It does sound nice.
I'm the captain, the AI is the navigator. That feels like a good setup.
It does. And that's exactly why it is dangerous. The source defines the tool mindset as the view that AI is just a capability we use to enhance efficiency.
Okay.
In this view, humans remain the sole decision makers. We are the ones in charge. The AI is just helping out. It feels safe because it maintains the hierarchy we are used to.
Right. It implies that nothing has fundamentally changed. We just have a faster way to do the work.
Ideally, yes.
Yeah.
But the source points out a paradox. When we adopt this mindset, when we convince ourselves that it's just a tool, we actually stop paying attention to how responsibility moves. We assume we are still holding the reins, but the reality of the workflow suggests otherwise. We stop scrutinizing the output because, well, it's just a tool, right?
The text mentions this concept of diffusion of accountability. That really stuck out to me. It's like, if the AI screws up, who do you blame?
Precisely. In a traditional workflow, if you make a decision, you own it. It's clear-cut. If you write a report and the data is wrong, that's on you. But the source notes that when AI outputs are integrated into workflows, stakeholders really struggle to determine who is to blame for a bad outcome.
Right, because you can just say, well, the model suggested it.
Exactly. Because the user feels like they were just following the recommendation of a smart system, their sense of personal responsibility just diminishes. They perceive the AI as a co-decision maker.
So it creates this gray zone.
A gray zone where no one feels fully on the hook for the result.
It's the computer says no problem, but on steroids. And there was another term in the research that felt painfully relatable, escalation fatigue.
Yes.
Or the changes in escalation paths. This feels like something that happens in offices every single day.
This is a critical observation from the text. I mean, think about a normal workplace. If you are a junior employee and you are unsure about a decision, you escalate it.
Sure, you go to your boss.
Yeah, go to your boss, you ask a colleague. You say, hey, I need a second set of eyes on this. Does this look right?
Right. You check your work against human experience.
But when you have an AI tool that gives you a very confident, very polished answer, you stop doing that. The source argues people just assume the AI has already provided the optimal solution.
So why bother your boss?
Why bother your boss? Why ask for help? You feel less empowered to question the recommendation because, well, the machine has access to all the data and you don't.
That is huge. So the tool mindset creates this environment where we think we are in charge, but in practice, we are quietly deferring to the machine. We are letting it steer the ship because we are too impressed by the navigation system to look out the window.
That is a great way to put it. And that leads us directly to the why. Why do we trust it so much? Why does it feel so right? The source material pivots here to the difference between a prediction and a decision.
Yeah, let's get into that because the text emphasizes that AI doesn't actually give answers. It gives probabilistic predictions.
Correct. And that is a distinction that gets lost so easily. An AI model is essentially this massive statistical engine. It is analyzing patterns in data to estimate what is likely to be true.
It's a probability.
It is a probabilistic prediction. It is not a definitive fact. It's a guess, a very sophisticated, high-speed guess based on math, but a guess nonetheless.
And here is the false authority concept you mentioned earlier. It feels objective. It doesn't feel like a guess at all.
Oh, totally. I mean, think about how the output looks. It uses numbers.
Right.
It uses that very formal professional tone. It never sounds unsure of itself. It never says, maybe it's this, but I'm not sure. It says, here is the strategy.
It uses the language of certainty.
And that mimics objectivity. The source lists these factors, the numbers, the tone, the structure, as reasons why AI outputs generate false authority. We're just wired to trust things that look professional and precise.
If it comes in a neat list with bullet points and perfect grammar, our brains just default to trusting it. So we have this transition described in the source, moving from AI providing information to AI giving answers. And that seems like a subtle shift, but it changes everything.
It changes the definition of a decision.
Mm.
The expert commentary in the course clarifies this beautifully. Information or prediction is data-driven insight. That is what the AI does. A decision is a conclusion reached after considering values, context, and experience. That is what the human is supposed to do.
But if the AI's prediction looks enough like a decision.
Exactly. We stop doing the human part. We just drift into automation bias.
The source mentioned that new employees are actually being trained into this bias. That sounds wild.
Yes, that was a concerning detail. Onboarding processes often teach new hires to prioritize the system's output just to keep things moving.
Wow.
And even without training, there is social pressure. Imagine being the one person in a meeting who disagrees with the algorithm. The algorithm has data. You just have your judgment. It becomes very hard to stand your ground.
It's like arguing with a calculator. You feel like you have to be the one who is wrong. Which brings us to the next big theme, the erosion of judgment.
Right.
If we are just accepting these probabilistic predictions as gospel, what happens to our own judgment? Does it just atrophy? Like a muscle you stop using?
The source argues that judgment doesn't disappear. It becomes invisible. As prediction authority rises, meaning as we trust the model, more visible individual judgment diminishes.
So we stop asking, is this prediction right? And start asking.
We start asking, what is the authority's rationale?
That is a subtle difference, but it matters. We aren't critiquing the answer. We are just trying to understand why the boss, the AI, said what it said.
And we have to remember what judgment actually is. The source defines judgment as a mechanism for navigating uncertainty. When you don't know the answer for sure, you use judgment.
You weigh the pros and cons.
You weigh the pros and cons, you look at the nuance.
Yeah.
But if we treat AI predictions as certainties, we feel like we don't need judgment anymore. We think the uncertainty has been removed.
But it hasn't been removed, right? It's just been hidden.
Precisely. And here is where the text offers a fascinating nuance. Judgment does still exist in the system. It just lives upstream.
Upstream.
Yeah.
What does that mean in this context?
Think about it. The AI didn't just appear, it was built. Data scientists chose the training data. Engineers designed the algorithms. They made judgments about what data was relevant, what constituted a good answer, and what to optimize for. So when you use the tool, you are relying on their past judgments.
Oh, wow. So you're living inside the judgments of people you have never met.
That's it.
That is wild. It's like moving into a house that's already furnished. You didn't pick the couch, you didn't pick the paint color, but you have to live with it.
That's a perfect analogy. And because you view it as a neutral tool, you don't even realize you're living in someone else's design. You just assume the couch has to be there.
So my tool is actually a bundle of other people's decisions wrapped up in code, pretending to be an objective answer. And because I think it's a tool, I don't question those upstream judgments.
And that is why the tool mindset is a trap. Yeah. It blinds you to that history. You treat the output as a fresh, objective fact, rather than a processed result of previous choices.
Okay, speaking of history and learning, there was a section in the source that really kind of scared me. It was about optimization versus learning. And specifically, the idea that optimization crowds out learning.
This is a critical conflict. In business and in life, really, we love optimization. We love hitting targets, improving metrics, getting efficient.
Sure.
But the source explains that when you focus intensely on optimization, on hitting the number, you suppress the broader learning process.
Because you are just focused on the result, not the why. You want the answer, you don't care about the
Right.
derivation.
You prioritize hitting the target over understanding the problem. And this leads to what the source calls learning collapse.
Learning collapse. It sounds like a structural failure.
It is. And the scary part, as you noted, is that it is invisible. It is so hard to detect. The source points out that performance like grades in school or sales targets at work might still look good.
All right.
You might be hitting your numbers because the AI is helping you get there.
So the graph is going up and to the right. Everyone is happy. The dashboard looks green.
But underneath, learning loss is happening. The source lists the signs. Contextual cues disappear. Feedback loops break. You stop understanding why things work. And because it happens gradually.
You don't see it coming.
You don't notice it until you face a situation the AI can't handle and you realize you have no idea what to do.
It reminds me of GPS again. If I use GPS to get everywhere, I never actually learn the layout of the city. I'm getting to my destination efficiently, I'm optimized, but if my phone dies, I'm completely stranded. I haven't learned anything.
That is the perfect example. The source mentioned that curiosity declines too, that negative emotions like frustration start to overshadow the joy of discovery.
Which makes sense.
It does. If the machine can just give me the answer, why should I struggle to learn the derivation? But that struggle is where the actual learning happens.
And anomalies. The text mentions that when learning collapses, we explain away anomalies. If something looks weird, we ignore it because it doesn't fit the optimization path.
Yes. In a healthy learning system, an anomaly is a treasure. It's a clue that something new is happening. It's a spark for innovation. But when we rely on AI to smooth everything out and hit the metric, we lose those clues. We ignore the signal because we are too focused on the efficiency.
It's like we are trading curiosity for certainty, or, well, false certainty.
Yes, we are trading the messy process of understanding for the clean output of an answer.
I want to pivot to the final major concept the source covers, which is speed. We usually think speed is good, move fast and break things, right? That's the mantra.
They do.
But the source calls speed a diagnostic.
That is a profound reframing. Speed isn't just a benefit. It is a way to see what is really happening in your system. The source argues that when decisions happen fast, usually due to AI acceleration, we lose our buffers.
We lose the time to think.
We lose the time to reflect. And that speed exposes broken incentives.
Can you give me an example of that? What kind of broken incentives?
Well, the text highlights the tension between financial incentives and other values, like ethics. If you can deploy an AI to maximize profit at lightning speed, you might bypass ethical checks that would normally slow you down.
I see.
The speed makes it very clear what the organization actually prioritizes.
It removes the friction that usually allows us to say, wait, is this the right thing to do?
Exactly. Or look at data availability. The source notes that if there is no data for a problem, the AI ignores it. So speed exposes the incentive to only solve problems that are easy to measure while neglecting the ones that are hard to quantify.
So if you have data on efficiency but no data on employee morale, the AI will optimize efficiency and ignore morale.
Right. If it's not in the data set, it doesn't exist.
Right.
And because we are moving so fast, we don't have time to stop and say, hey, what about the stuff you didn't measure?
Exactly. The source calls this the system truth.
The system truth. I like that.
When you are forced to move fast, you rely on heuristic shortcuts. You rely on your baseline assumptions. So speed lays bare the actual values and biases of the organization. Not the mission statement on the wall, but how the system actually behaves under pressure.
That is really powerful. Speed strips away the polite fiction and shows you who you really are. If your organization is biased, AI speed will make you efficiently, rapidly biased.
Perfectly said. It amplifies what was already there. It doesn't fix the flaws. It runs them at 100 miles per hour.
So we have covered a lot of ground here. We started with this idea of a tool, a simple, helpful assistant. But we realized that viewing AI that way is actually a mindset trap.
A trap that leads to a diffusion of accountability and a loss of human judgment.
We talked about how AI provides probabilistic predictions, not answers, but we treat them like answers because of false authority.
And how that leads to automation bias, where we just stop questioning the machine.
We discussed learning collapse, where we optimize our way into ignorance, hitting our metrics but losing our understanding.
And finally, how speed acts as a diagnostic, revealing the broken incentives and true nature of our systems.
It's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
It really flips the script on how I look at these apps on my phone.
It does. And I think there's one more layer to this that we need to touch on before we wrap up. The source mentions the bystander effect in the context of responsibility.
Oh, right. That's usually used in emergencies, right? Like
Mm.
everyone stands around watching a fire because they assume someone else called 911.
Exactly. And the source applies this to AI. When we integrate these systems, we assume someone else is handling the responsibility. The data scientists check this. The legal team approved this.
The AI knows what it is doing.
But algorithm is objective.
Right. We become bystanders in our own work. We assume the machine is the adult in the room. But the machine is just a system of predictions. It doesn't care about outcomes. It doesn't have accountability.
It can't get fired. It can't feel remorse.
Not at all.
So what does this all mean for the listener? If I'm a senior executive or just someone trying to use these tools without losing my mind, what's the takeaway?
The source ends with some reflection topics, these pause points.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a tension they highlight that I think is the key to all of this. It says, consider the tension where responsibility is visible, but authority to act is absent.
Responsibility is visible, but authority to act is absent. Break that down for me.
Think about the frustration many people feel right now. You are responsible for the outcome. If the project fails, it's on you. If the customer is unhappy, it's your fault.
Right.
But because you have deferred so much to the AI system, to its false authority, to its optimization metrics, you have effectively given up the authority to make the real decisions.
So you're responsible for the car, but you let the algorithm take the steering wheel.
That's it. That is uncomfortable.
It is supposed to be. The source explicitly states that this course provides no playbooks, no easy remedies. It says, we anticipate that you may encounter ambiguity and discomfort.
That is a bold move for a course. Welcome. Prepare to be uncomfortable.
But I guess that's necessary.
It is. That discomfort is the signal that you are waking up from the tool mindset. If you feel that tension, that I'm responsible but I'm not deciding, that is the moment you can start to take authority back.
So you start treating it like a system you need to manage.
Yes. Manage, question, and audit. Rather than a magic wand, you just wave at problems.
It's about reclaiming the decision part of the process. Let the AI handle the information, but we have to keep the judgment.
Exactly. Reassert your role in upstream judgment. Question the incentives. Slow down enough to see what the speed is hiding.
So the next time you open up that chatbot or look at that AI-generated forecast, don't just ask, is this right? Ask, who is deciding here? Is it me or is it the system?
And if you can't answer that question, it's time to pause.
I love that. A little bit of skepticism goes a long way. This has been a really eye-opening deep dive. It's definitely changed how I'm going to look at my tools tomorrow morning.
Same here.
Yeah,
It is always better to be the one driving, even if the GPS is really smart.
absolutely. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. We will catch you on the next deep dive. Keep questioning.